All right, so the workout starts. I'm going to be starting off with 5 burpee pull-ups and then the 10 shuttle runs. So the first 5 burpee pull-ups felt pretty easy. I felt like I had a pretty good momentum. I jumped both my feet back. And then I think for the majority of my reps here, I was stepping forward with my right leg. I tried to make sure I alternated legs as well. The biggest thing and the biggest tip for you guys here is to decide if you want to kip or go into a strict pull-up. So finding out whatever you want to do. For myself, I decided I was gonna do mostly strict pull-ups. There's a couple reps where I used a little bit of my knees and hips, but I think it's very important that you find the rhythm and the strategy you're gonna use and implement that for majority, 90% of how you're gonna attack this workout. Also, as I'm watching myself, I did the 5 burpee pull-ups, now I'm going to shuttle runs. A couple things, very important to have someone pace your runs and also count your runs. Going down and back will be 1 rep. Having a strategy and having a pace is going to be very important. You're going to feel very fresh in the beginning. So you're like, I'm just going to go 10 reps or 10 reps all out. When I was watching myself, as I'm watching myself now, it's very important that I pace myself, but also be very meticulous with having both feet cross that line and then making sure my hand touches on the opposite side. So there was 1 rep right in the beginning where I kind of missed the touch of the floor and I kept myself accountable and I had to go back a couple seconds and touch. That was probably at least 1 rep of the burpee pull-ups that I could have gotten more at the end, but that's where you learn from your mistakes, review, reflect, and use that strategy going forward. Now, as you look at where I'm at, I had to make sure I had to go all the way past, so I actually go past my place where I do my burpee pull-ups because the space was 25 feet. I had to go actually a little further. Ideally, it's not the most great situation for myself because I had to do extra step forward, extra step back, but that's the scenario what it is. That was a space I had allotted to me in the gym setup. So I just made sure my feet and hands went past, then I went straight into the burpee. As you know, later rounds, I kind of just crawl to the floor once I pass that line to make sure I go straight to the floor. Now, as you're watching my repetitions here, I try to be very consistent. I also put my hands directly underneath the pull-up bar so that my hands are in line, the same spot. You actually can see the chalk marks. I made sure to put chalk on my hands. So as I went down to the floor, I could see my hands every single time. So like you saw right there, I go back behind, I go past that line of where I need to start it and then go. I couldn't just start from my pull-up rig because that would be short. And I'm not gonna short myself those feet. Obviously, that's not the actual workout. So I had to take a step or 2 back, go back behind the line, and then go to the 25-foot mark and then back. And as you notice here that I touch with 1 hand, I tried to make sure I was alternating the hand that I was touching with. This is another point I would highlight for you guys. Wherever you are touching, however you're rotating, try to make sure you're going different directions, meaning you're not always rotating or always going the same direction. Think of a burpee box jump. You do your burpee, then you box jump over. If you're going the same direction the entire time, you'll get a little dizzy, maybe nauseous. For me, I try to implement that alternating side. So think of it like when you see me turn, I always am facing the flag, or I'm always facing down the rig. So you could see that flag, the rogue sign there. The intention for me was to make sure I'm alternating sides. That's also gonna put less stress on 1 hip. So I'm gonna go alternating sides versus put all my weight on 1 leg every single time rotating around. Then from there, I try to make sure I maintain my pace. Notice as my hips, I leave my hips a little higher than I wanted to. My back gets a little fatigued. So if you feel like your back is fatiguing, bend your knees a little bit more so you can get your hips a little bit lower. That'll put less stress on your back. Now back to the round of burpee pull-ups. Notice that as I pull myself up, my feet and legs kind of swing forward a little bit. Not the best because then I have to take a step back. In the long run, I think it gave me that extra step to catch my breath, allow myself to kind of find a specific rhythm for myself. But if you can avoid any extra movement, or extra steps, that's going to help you get a couple extra seconds at the end. That will help you actually get a couple extra reps. So the strategy here for your burpee pull-ups, like I said before, 1, notice whatever tendency you have, whether that's strict or kipping, incorporate that. Also, lift your chin. Make sure you're getting your chin up as high as possible. We talk about a lot of neutral spine and positionings and making sure your body's in a good anatomical position when you're executing movements. Here, you might want to push the envelope just slightly to be able to get that chin over it. We actually talked about it on the Power Monkey Camp, our Power Monkey Fitness podcast earlier in terms of your neck position. Dave Durante was talking about lifting that chin, getting it over. Jordan was also talking about positioning of the hands. We also mentioned about working the negative. So notice that as soon as I get my chin over the bar here, I try to let go of the bar as quickly as possible. There's a few reps where I kind of get my chin down, then I let go, but I try to make sure that I was letting go as quick as possible. Again, I take that step back, touch the line, get my feet behind the line, and then I go for the shuttle runs. One thing to think about is your shuttle runs are staying consistent. Those reps, those 10 reps aren't changing. So finding a rhythm, finding a pace you know you can challenge yourself and push yourself is important. Something we talked about a little bit earlier was accountability of your equipment, but also layout of your space. You will be limited by certain things. Maybe you can't change the perfect rig to the perfect place where you want to run, or whatever setup you might have at your gym, but find the most ideal situation that you have and the space, and have everything prepped up. So notice obviously my barbell's to the side. It's out of my way of line for my shuttle runs. My weights are to the side. I'm already loaded for that first barbell. So just think about that setup execution for yourself, whatever load you're going to be. Now, if your endurance is really good and your recovery is great, trust in that ability and continue to push yourself and keep yourself accountable to that pace. I want to say it was after the round of 15 burpee pull-ups, around to 20 burpee pull-ups, I was starting to really feel it in my lower back. So I was hinging, keeping my hips high, but I know I have a good recovery. I know I have good endurance. So I just trusted in my ability and just kept pushing the pace. And again, this is where your strategy and how you think is very important, because for me, I was thinking, all right, just get to the burpee pull-ups and then I can recover on the shuttle runs. As I was going through the burpee pull-ups here, as I'm back to the bar, I could start to feel my core on the set. So I felt like my core was like smoked pancakes. And when I say that, I could feel like kind of my abs being fatigued and tired, but I know that if I continue to use my legs and jump up to the bar, that I could kind of take away from the core. So this is where the strategy is going to be important, to be dynamic and be kind of like silly putty, so you can make changes. So for example here, you'll notice in some of my pull-ups, I'll get my feet, my 1 foot underneath me, and then I swing my arms and do a big jump. Yes, that will tax your quads a little bit, but if you change it up slightly, so for example, you do 5 reps with a big jump, arm swing, then the next few reps maybe less jump, more of an arm pull, you're giving your legs a little bit of break, then you give your arms a little bit of break. I noticed for myself, when I was able to get one big step underneath the rig, I could get a nice big jump and go up into the bar. So think of it, if you played basketball or volleyball, I played volleyball, when you get set up for a spike, you do your 1-2 step, you jump up, you swing your arms up, then you spike the ball. So similar movement pattern here, where I do that one big step up, other foot comes in, and then I use my legs to jump up. That's going to be less of an arm pull. So if you have maybe a stronger lower body than upper body, I would rely on that big jump, swing those arms. If you have a stronger upper body than lower body, then use a little bit less jump, more arm pull. So again, I can see my body fatiguing a little bit slightly, where I take that step back, then I jump down. I try to be consistent with both feet going back, because I know that was going to at least get me to the floor, and then I could take my one step. Burpee pull-ups are something that isn't going to be super challenging or super high skill like a bar muscle up, ring muscle up. It is something that requires upper body strength, but if you have the capacity to keep going, be accountable and just step back and then step up. Also, transitions here. Notice that as soon as I finish that last rep, I take a step back, touch the line, and then go, versus let me lollygag, let me take my time, let me slowly go back. Very important to have quick transitions here. So as I watch myself, I think it's very important, because I'm an athlete. I'm critical of myself. I try to say, oh, I could have done this better. I could have had better transitions. I could have lowered my hips. But that's why you review your work. Part of my mantra I've talked about before is being accountable to your goal, preparing and executing, review your work, which is what we're doing right now, being patient, and then enjoying the journey. So as you guys watch this video and as you listen to my suggestions, take what you find beneficial. If there's something that doesn't benefit you or doesn't make sense to you, that's fine. But if there's something that is, please utilize that. I'm here to help and share my experience to hopefully help you. Now we are at, I can't remember a little over 8.5 minute mark here. For myself, I could feel my lungs were burning a little bit. You can see as I hinge over, my back's nice and round. Get a little flexion there. But again, like I said, I felt like I was able to maintain this pace and push myself. I was trying to count out a couple times reps so that you could hear what rep I was on. That gave me an awareness of where I was at. My goal was to get through the 30 pull-ups, burpee pull-ups. After watching the open workout, I was like, all right, I think this is definitely doable. Again, quick transition back to the burpee pull-ups. Notice as I jump up also here, watch this one where I drop down to the floor, chest and belly touch, one big step. You might feel like you're kind of doing a big lunge with that leg, but it will save you. I will guarantee you that, because as I get to the round of the 25 and even into the 30, there was a couple times where I didn't get my foot all the way up and I had to take an extra step, and then I decided I'm going to be a little lazy and not jump, and that cost me by having to pull a little bit more of the upper body. So very important to be very efficient in movement. Maybe if it takes half a second longer, get that foot all the way up underneath you, big jump, swing, and then grab. Something we talked about on the Power Monkey podcast as well, and I'm going to address here, is your grip position. I had always, throughout the entire round of burpee pull-ups, I did my burpee pull-ups, just regular traditional grip. We talked about possibly having either a chin-up grip, like a supine grip where your palms are facing you, or a mixed grip. So if your upper body isn't as strong or you feel like your endurance to do this for 15 minutes is going to be challenging, don't be afraid to have plan B and plan C, where you do a mixed grip, a supine grip, right? Or if you need to even wrap your thumbs. Good portion of the reps, I think I have my thumb on top, here, thumb on top. Something we talked about as well is they're not consecutive reps. It's not 5 reps in a row of pull-ups. It's 1 burpee pull-up every single time. So if you're having a problem or having a struggle connecting your reps, this is great for you because it allows you to take a step back, do the burpee, and then go into the pull-up. If you are weaker in the upper body and you need to kip, do that. Incorporate the kip right from the get-go, as that will allow you to last a little bit longer on the pull-up, burpee pull-ups in that component. Also, notice my grip position as I do my burpee pull-ups. For the most part, they're either right outside my shoulders, like that one that was a little wide out shoulders. As I get a little tired, my hands come a little more narrow. Don't be afraid to change your grip hand position or grip width position. Obviously, I get a little tired. I hinge my hips. I take a breather. But something that's nice about the burpee is that you can keep moving. You might be going maybe at a slower pace, but that movement's going to be super important. Again, as you see me do some of the reps, my legs don't incorporate too much, but there's a couple reps where I kind of bring my knees up, or the back, my lower leg, my body I kind of bring my heel to my butt to get a little bit of a reverse, like a reverse kick almost. That helps slightly, but whatever you know you can stick with, strict pull-ups or the kipping pull-up, please recommend and do that. All right, so here we go, shuttle runs again. Also notice my hand movement. I try to do like a little jog, right? A little jog where my hand's going back and forth. One, that's important because it's going to get blood flow. Don't be afraid to even shake out the arms to extend them, but then get a little shift versus staying frozen. The more you're frozen in the upper body, the more that body's going to hold on to that blood flow there versus shaking the arms out or shifting from your hips. And again, please rotate different directions. Also, something to think about your steps. If you can get past that line where both feet are past, you pivot, you drop the hip, and you can even use the arm behind you to get some momentum. I know that might be something that's not the top of your head later on in the workout, 9-minute mark, 10-minute mark, but at least in the first couple of minutes, I think it's very important. Also, little stutter steps. Try to avoid stutter steps. I'm struggling with words right now. Those stutter steps, I'm going to stop saying that word. Those stutter steps will not help you, but be efficient to get both feet past the line and then get back to the next movement. If it helps having a line on the floor, tape marks, chalk line, do that. That's what I did for the chalk mark to make sure, even though there was a crack in the line in the mat, I knew that was the 25 feet turnaround part mark. That gave me at least a remembrance of, hey, hands and feet behind that line. Something to think about too, I know we're just wrapping up with those shuttle runs, but acceleration and deceleration here. You're having to speed up to run, right, to get to the next line, and then you have to decelerate. So in your training, if you haven't done a lot of deceleration, acceleration, that's going to be a lot of wear and tear on your hips and back. So for your warm-up, highly recommend warming up your back. That could be glute bridges, bird dogs, cat cows, a little bit of foam rolling. Also open up your hamstrings and hips. So that could be a pigeon pose, a couch stretch, a dragon stretch, a lizard stretch. You could do some dynamic pigeon where you're opening up the hip socket. Some monster walking with a glute band would be great for you as well to work and kind of open up the back of the hip. That'll be huge. Doing some maybe like reverse step ups or reverse step downs, or even some foot elevated squats, kind of like a VMO squat or ATG squat. Your heels are elevated. That will allow you to work a little bit of strengthening in the back of the knee. That will help with the deceleration. If you're not sure or unaware of things to incorporate for a training program, I have my fitness app that you can check out, and I have multiple programs on there that help you get stronger, lose fat, a lot of accessory work to help you get stronger, not only in the core, but also upper body and lower body. So feel free to check that out. But it's very important that you warm your body up for this workout, specifically back and hips.
Can you talk about your experience with deceleration after CrossFit?
Yeah, in terms of like lack of it? Yeah. So in my personal experience in CrossFit, I was very one-dimensional, meaning I was always working in one plane. I didn't really train a lot of deceleration, didn't really train a lot of back of the knee strength. And so I was very kind of robotic in that way. As I just started to train for American Ninja Warrior, I started to train for other implements like pole, dance classes, I started to understand different planes. So I started to work into the transverse plane as well as the horizontal plane. Also, as I was training for long drive, for golf, I started to use huge transverse movement. So think of the golf swing. You're rotating, going back one direction, and then extending and accelerating the other direction. So that change of direction was huge for me. I felt very off, very weird, because I didn't train a lot of that in CrossFit. Like I said, it's very one-dimensional. So being able to incorporate more training exercises into my program was hugely beneficial, specifically for movements like this, because you look at your body, you're running one direction, then you're having to pivot, switch, turn the other direction. So if you don't ever do that, it's going to feel awkward and weird. And as I finished up, I wrapped up there, the burpee pull-ups. That was very spicy. But let me wrap up that one last thing. Again, deceleration. This is going to have deceleration and acceleration. So make sure you're warming your body up. If you are looking for exercises to incorporate into this, like future training for yourself, highly recommend working in transverse. So think rotational movements, and also different exercises where like you're hanging on a bar and you're swinging side to side. Think of training for ninja. Anyways, we'll wrap that up. As I wrapped up the 15 minutes, I crawl. I laugh at myself because I was dying, but I wanted to make sure I addressed everyone in the live because I appreciate them taking the time to come watch me. Wrapped up, I believe I got 26 burpee pull-ups into the round of 30. Like I said, my goal is to get to those 30 reps. So I'm happy with that. Like I said, my core was smoked. I could feel it, but I wanted to make sure that I gave myself at least 1 minute rest going into the max thruster. Now, this is where the strategy is going to be dynamic for you. Rest 1 minute, rest 90 seconds, rest 2 minutes. Find whatever your recovery. If you need more recovery, give yourself that time frame. Like I said, having your weight set up and your barbell set up is going to be very important. I suggest starting with a load or a weight that's going to be like you don't even think twice about it. So I used 135 on the barbell. My strategy and plan was to power clean it, then go into the thruster. I've been having some knee issues. It's doing a lot better right now. I saw Dr. Audrey Falcone out of Las Vegas. She was able to do an ultrasound, assess it, pull out some fluid, gave me actually the second time I saw her, they gave me some liquid in there to space it out because my fat cushion pad in there was getting irritated, and it's been amazing. So shout out to her for helping me out. It's been huge. So that was my strategy into why I power cleaned, then went into thruster versus going straight into that full clean thruster. I didn't want to just put myself in that position where I was putting a lot of load in the knee. That's what actually irritated it, was a squat clean a couple weeks ago. So I tried to make sure I didn't do that. But again, that's my strategy. Whatever you plan and whatever strategy you have, believe in that, trust in that. Don't be afraid to be dynamic though. So again, I'm numbering what number I'm going to do next year. So 135, and then I went to 165. Again, bigger jump for me, but the idea and the strategy was get a heavier load and then try to get in at least 4 lifts. Like I said, 1 on the minute. I gave myself about a minute, 20 minute, 30 rest. Then I did my 1 lift. So my lifts went a little bit faster, but I tried to really make sure that I had my time for 4 lifts, and if I had an extra lift, awesome. Something I'm going to note here too, in your thruster position, if you have very tight hips, hamstrings, if your calves are also very tight, it can be very important to warm up your hip and your upper body position. If you start to thruster and you go into the bottom of the squat and your torso comes forward, think of this as your shoulders, this is your hips, and you lean forward, the most likely that bar goes forward, the harder it is going to have to pull you back up, or you pull that bar back up. So opening up your hips and hamstrings and calves are going to be very important to having a more upright torso. The more upright torso you have as you descend to the squat and as you come out of that squat, it's going to be very much easier for you to finish the load hitting the overhead position. If you struggle with your overhead position, make sure you're warming up your tricep to shoulder ratio, because as you go to squat, right, when you go down, this angle increases, right? My torso leans back, my elbows go forward. So open up the shoulder, triceps, and lat to keep this more upright position. This will allow you to help keep the bar on the torso, which is the bigger shoulder blades or bigger area and joints compared to the wrists and elbows. So now I'm going for 185, power cleaned, and then hit my full rep, locked it out, made sure to finish it, complete the rep, and then drop the barbell. Now, here is where I am dynamic, right? Here is where I'm like, what do I want to do? Now, if I was competing, I would maybe play it more safe and go with 195 to make sure I get that big lift on the board, meaning I get the 195 versus the 185. But I'm not competing. My focus is American Ninja Warrior. I'm doing this to be able to give myself some experience so I know what it's like, so that I can hopefully give it to you guys as well. So I decided, heck yeah, let's just throw 2.5s on there and do 200, right? What do I got to lose? So again, depending on what your strategy is, there's kind of 2 ways you can look at it. Go for the points, get you that lift on the board, depending on where you're at competition-wise, and or, hey, I want to go for a 1-rep PR. It's the open. Everyone gets, not everyone, but a lot of people get their first, right? They got the first muscle up last week. So don't be afraid to be able to take that extra stretch, add the 2.5 pounds on, add the 5 pounds on, whatever you're thinking, and go for it. So again, I think I had like 30, 40 seconds remaining. I said, hey, just put the 2.5s on. Just put it on the inside of the clip, make sure it counts. So if I was going for it, I could count it. And my mindset here was like, all right, I'm gonna lift it at the 10-second mark, because as long as the barbell's off the floor, that was very important to make sure. So I power cleaned it, easy peasy. I was like, yes, I feel great. Big breath. I got angry. I was all upset in my face, and I got up and I was like, get up. It's like above my forehead. It's like here, but it was too far in front of me. So if it's like here, there's no way I'm gonna finish it. If it was here, maybe. And then I went for that last lift. So I wrapped it up. I'm glad I went for that 200. So again, don't be afraid. Wherever you're at on that totem pole, make sure you appreciate that. And I just want to say a shout out to you guys in the community. I appreciate all the support. I appreciate the feedback. Again, doing this was super fun because, of course, I'm an athlete. I want to challenge myself. I want to push myself, but I also want to make sure that I'm able to give back to the community